Well, hi everybody. Welcome to Stratosphere Lounge. Sorry about the late start. I took my car in for an oil change, and now the engine has to be removed. Apparently, the car was up on the blocks as just a routine, fluids kind of thing. And I kept wondering why the car is taking so long. And then I finally called and said something happened. He said, "I've seen this twice in 25 years. One of these, some kind of a timing thing in the engine got reversed, and it's still under warranty. They have to fix it, but my car's out for, I don't know, 2 weeks, I think they said. So I was running around trying to get back here in time and load some video, because this is going to be Geeks Night Out. Anyway, I hope everybody's doing well. And as usual, since I had to come flying back here on an Uber instead of being here 2 hours ago, which probably wouldn't have made a difference anyway, I got a bunch of videos that I'm trying to pull and that I'm hoping I have the audio correct for. So as I said in the comment section, this is going to be the video game edition of the Stratosphere Lounge. Geeking out, not going to get any politics, sorry. People have been asking for a video game show for quite a long time now, and now they're going to get one, because I have actually had some thoughts about these things. It's going to be my right angle show, but it also means I haven't read the questions yet either, which is always kind of fun. Okay, let's see here. Where do we start? Why don't we start here? I've been watching a lot of something on YouTube that I stumbled onto called DCS World. DCS stands for Digital Combat Simulation. Oh, and by the way, it was playing underneath the Stratosphere banner, but this software is so primitive, which I talk about all the time. Apparently, you have to go through 6 steps to clear the background video, and I didn't. So, of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, you didn't see any of that. In any event, back to DCS. I spent a lot of time in flight simulators. I'm very happy that I'm flying a real airplane now. But I spent a lot of time in flight sims, and I came in at exactly the right time. I came in. I had an Apple IIe. I had the Flight Simulator Model 1 and everything, and so on. So I've been just interested in flight simulation for a long time, but really I was using it because I couldn't fly, couldn't afford to fly, whatever the case may be. And then every now and then I just kind of, duck in on YouTube and just see what the state of the art is doing. And, the big flight sim guys like Microsoft Flight Simulator and X-Plane, they would do an upgrade, and I go, it's all right, I guess. And then I stumbled on something called DCS. DCS stands for Digital Combat Simulation, as I think I just said. I don't know much about how it's actually produced. I'm almost certain it's open source, which means that people are contributing from all over the place. And the graphics in this, which is a military flight sim, were absolutely breathtaking, just breathtaking. So I'm going to run a little bit of DCS, and excuse me for having to check this while we're going, but I don't want to blow out anybody's speakers. Looks like this will do it. So first thing is I'm going to just show you a series of graphic highlights, assuming this plays, which is, even money here. And I'll just kind of do a voiceover narration on it, and then I'll show you some more interesting stuff. Okay, let's see if this will work. Please, no, you're not going to do it, are you? None of you are going to do it. Hang on now. Working on it. Hold on. All right, this may be just a fade to black. Let's just see. No, it's not. Hey, look at that. Okay, so that looks like the bottom of an F-15E to me, with the conformal fuel tanks up there. Now remember, this is not a rendered scene. This is not something that was done it might be an F-18 actually. This wasn't something that was done in between the things. It's an F-15. This is in-game footage. This is what it looks like when you actually play the game live. And some of this stuff is better than others, but some of it is really breathtaking. So it doesn't look so great on the ground, but as I mentioned, I think on my right angle, I've seen footage where I thought it was a real airplane. That shot right there, the end of that, I couldn't tell that wasn't a real airplane. Let's see what else we've got. That looks tremendous. That's real-time simulated F-15 in the sky, and the background's a little weak, but if I hadn't known it, I wouldn't have known it. So here comes the F-15 again. Hopefully you'll show some of the other models because they're really good. And to have this kind of fidelity out the window is one thing, but nowadays, of course, given how fast the the internet is, nowadays, you can not only fly those aircraft, you can fly those aircraft simultaneously with friends. Everybody likes to go up against human opponents, but I actually like playing cooperative much, much better. So if you had 5 friends, you could be in 5 F-15s, or everybody could have their own, and you'd fight against computer-generated enemies. But I hadn't seen any of this stuff until just a couple months ago, so I'm going to let this DCS thing play out. I think it's about 4 or 5 minutes, but it's spectacular. It's a Su-33, I think. And I mean, look at that. That's absolutely terrific. And by the way, it's you can get it if you got a fast enough computer. You can do this in 4K resolution at maybe 60 frames a second. Now, I don't know if they're going to show us any of the interiors, because this one I have actually not seen before. P-51, lovely. But the cockpits on these the simulation of the cockpit is as good as the outside, and every single switch works and has to be operated. If you're going to start an A-10 on the ground, you're going to have to go through the steps necessary to start the A-10, Su-35. Sorry about that. Thanks, Dave. That's an L-39. I've flown the back seat of that airplane, and when you see the cockpit for the L-39, it's a trainer. I mean, it's every single switch in the right place, and it's right where it's supposed to be. So there's that whole training aspect. Here's the hog. You gotta love the hog. Yeah, it's tremendous. So I'm just let this play out. I don't know how much longer it is, but I don't think it's too much longer. And then I'll show you some other really cool stuff, and that'll kind of set us up for the night here. You know what? I'm probably gonna just go ahead and I think we get the general point here. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah. I don't want to turn it off. That is tremendous. It's just tremendous. So let's see if I can get the next one going here. Oh, wow. I mean, that's just absolutely fantastic. It's just fantastic. Okay. Enough of that. Here's what I stumbled upon a couple days ago that really blew my mind. Oh, hey, Foghorn, how are you? I've been thinking about you quite a bit, actually. We're talking about flight sims and the improvement in graphics, and this is in-game, real-time footage. None of this is a rendered cutscene or anything. This is what you see looking out the window, and as I said, they're all they can all be linked together. You missed the cool jets there, Foghorn, but you'll get the idea. I don't want to get off of this just yet, but I don't want to let it go on forever either. What do we got here? It looks like a L-39 maybe. That's F5. No, it's not. Oh, that's an A-10. I'm going to let it run a little longer for our friend Foghorn, who came in late, and he's the guy I wanted. There you go. Now look at that. That's a real-time, I want to say, Su-27, and that's what you see out the window in this game. I think the thing just looped through, so let's go ahead and bring up the next one. Because if you take a combination of this and you add what I'm about to show you, you end up with some pretty cool things for a stay-at-home kind of a situation here. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm just going to let one more second or two go. Yeah. All right, here we go. Here is what is available to you for about $2,000 for the screen and the setup, and then probably another $200-300. I'm sorry, maybe another $1,500, $2,000, something like that for there we go. For the projectors. So take a look at this. This is from a company called Simpit, and it is this particular model is a 360-degree screen, And basically you can see that there are two projectors, and what the guy is doing now is he's aligning the projectors to match his particular setup there. And it's a pretty tedious process, it looks like, but I'm certainly up for it. I could definitely do it. And what's happening is they're blending. You can see he's using a laser level there. They're blending these two images perfectly. For the 360 degree one, they make a 270 degree one, which goes back behind your shoulders. That has three projectors. But you can see they're basically trying to do the alignment there. And then, so you get a general idea for the size of it. That particular setup, meaning the curved screen, the supports, and all the rest of it, is about, in its basic form, I want to say $1,700 New Zealand money. And then the projectors are probably $800 or $900 each, and so on. And of course, you have to have the computer to drive it, and so on. But this is not out of reach for people that really want to work hard. So if you do that, then what you get is you eventually get you get this. Hope you get this. Where'd it go? Maybe I brought it in twice. Hang on a sec. Let's see what we get here. Nope. Hang on. Sorry. You know, it is around here. Here we go. All right, this is not what I wanted to roll next, but I'm going to roll it anyway. This is a this is from Star Citizen. This is a combination flight sim, but it's a massive multi-world universe. So basically, you've got this unbelievably huge amount of space, and you can fly around in it, and you have your own ship, and those can be your friends, or they can be non-player characters, and you get to talk to each other. And in these particular vessels, again, the software is so appalling here. It starts running the clip when you click on it in the preview. So in any event, I'm going to let this cycle through a little bit here. But this is, again, real-time footage from what it looks like inside the game. And I know I'm giving a lot of setup here, but I just got to because I think it's bloody awesome. And while we're looking at this gorgeosity, I'm going to try one more attempt to see if I can find where that or maybe this is it. So, just to give you an idea, here's a little planet. Here's some alien creatures. Again, this is kind of pretty much what it looks like in the game. They're doing a 2001 kind of a parody here, obviously, and you'll see the payoff in a moment. And I won't bore you with all of this, but still. Here it goes. Beautiful. That's just absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. So there's the characters sitting in the chairs, and as I say, you can have a friend who's in, the Netherlands and somebody else who's in Antarctica, and everybody is basically coming out and talking on the same computer system. So this guy, let's say, is running the engineering console, the girl's running the radio console. Everybody's interacting with everybody else in real time, and I've basically wanted something like this since I was 12, since I first saw my first computer. And I really, really like it. And I'll tell you where I want to go with it in a minute. It's just a couple more things. Now, when you combine... Oh, I'll show you one more thing here. They're really clever about this because in the game, in the Star Citizen game, commercials for the ships as if they're real ships, as if you're selling cars. So here's a commercial for one of the ships in Star Citizen, and it's got the professional voiceover, and it's got the music and all the rest of it, and they're selling this 300 series, I think it is. So I know I keep saying this, I have to keep saying it because I can't believe it myself. None of this is pre-rendered. This is all what you see in real time walking around the game. It's just absolutely so they, Dave Big Booty said I need to see a pupil-to-pupil thing. One of the things that they've done with Star Citizen is they've done procedural planets, and what that means is you can literally look into some, as Dave pointed out, real time, generated in real time. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. So that's some Star Citizen. Now, if you take Star That's the SimPit running PC computers, and if you take that and combine it with something like Star Citizen, you get this. Now, this is not Star Citizen. This is another game called Elite. Please work. Please just do it. There we go. Hang on. Okay. Well, apparently I was talking to myself the whole time. We had this last clip. I don't know what to do about this software. I really don't know what to do about it, honestly. We've been doing this for 5-6 years now, and so on. In any event, there we go. So, what does that mean? Well, it means something for me recreationally, and I'll tell you about that. And then I'll tell you about this idea I had, because I do have a strange ability to find a way to synthesize some of these things sometimes. So first of all, when I saw the DCS L39, I've flown in the back seat of an L39. When I looked at the cockpit switches, I realized this is a great training for the L39. The flight dynamics are exactly the same. Switches are in the same place, roll rate, all of that stuff. So just that alone, if you wanted to transition to the L39 or anything else, would be fun. But obviously the main reason you get something like DCS and the ultimately the kind of simulator cockpit thing would be to fly stuff that you couldn't normally fly. F-15, A-10. The great thing about DCS, and the reason DCS and Star Citizen are the two games I want to talk about tonight mostly, is that both of them are open-ended, so that instead of just making, here's an airplane model, and maybe we'll give you another airplane model in a year or two, everybody's out there developing weird models. There's a MiG-21, there's a MiG-15, there's an F-5. These are rather unusual aircraft. And even better, you're going down there on ground targets, but you can man the anti-aircraft guns. The anti-aircraft guns look just as good as the airplanes do, and you can put yourself in a tank, put yourself in a Humvee, you can put yourself in a SAM site, you can put yourself on an A-10, put yourself anywhere you want to, and the quality of it is just absolutely amazing. And the fact that you can interact with your friends in real time is absolutely astonishing. I've been looking at a couple of videos that these guys did. I think call themselves the Reapers, and they've done a bunch of missions on DCS. So you'll see an F-15 and two Mirages and an F-5, and you'll hear the voice back and forth, and they're assigning targets and so on. It's actually pretty cool. Same thing for Star Citizen. Star Citizen is so open-ended. Now, I don't think Star Citizen is open source. In fact, I know it's not. But Star Citizen was done by the guy who did Wing Commander, which I played enthusiastically back, I want to say, around 1988, 89. I know somebody had run it on a 286 and somebody had a 386. This guy was running Wing Commander on a 386. I thought I was going to faint. It was so cool. I thought I was just going to fall down and die. So this guy's name is Roberts, I think. Roberts Space Industry. Anyway. And he was the guy who did Wing Commander, and he basically crowdfunded this thing. And I don't know what their budget is now. Somebody probably will here. I'm sure somebody will kick in, but it's got to be north of $100 million that they're spending on this. They've got developer teams all around the world. So you'll find that the British team is doing things like they're doing motion capture for things like picking up crates, and they're doing motion capture for being wounded and all the rest of it. And then somewhere else, they're building new ships, and someplace else they're working on other things. Chris Roberts, thanks, Matt. But here's the thing that actually blew my mind and made it worthy of me really spending some time talking about it, aside from the fact that I think it's cool and I want to do it. When I was watching, because I really got into the weeds on this, to be honest with you, I really, really did, and I really am interested in it. And when I learned how to program a computer was probably 1981 or something. It was BASIC. That was the name of the language, and we had a very simple black and white monitor. And I would type in, go sub, line 100, go sub, line 260, and all the rest of it. And people were just trying to experiment with, how to program a computer. Now, I don't mean this to sound arrogant. It's really a sign of severe mental imbalance, but the first thing I did when I was learning how to program a computer was I did a simulation, a solar system simulation. It basically just took a look at the percentage of, OB, AFG, G, KM stars, and then I randomized the number, I randomized the orbit, that gave me the orbital period, I randomized the inclination, that gave me a rough idea of temperatures, and I was doing it because I was playing this role-playing game called Traveler. A Traveler is just played with a pair of dice and your imagination, but I had a Apple II, and I was starting to think, hey, I can get some, I can generate some information. Then I wrote a combat system using the rules of Traveler, and the thing was probably 80,000 lines, and I'll bet I only needed 60. That's how bad I was as a programmer. It's just, you want to talk about hacking furniture with an axe, but nevertheless it worked. I could turn it on, and I could have these space combats work out the way they worked out in Traveler as the vectors are moving and the weapons and all the rest of it. So I've been into this for a long time. And obviously when you play Traveler, when you're, spending a little time by yourself when you're younger, like a lot of time, you get a feel for wanting to live in this science fiction world. Some people are into the fantasy. I like the sci-fi. So finally, there have been any number of spaceflight sims. The space combat sims get better and better and better. But I wasn't particularly interested in those. I wasn't particularly interested in the flight sims either. But the quality of the graphics in DCS and Star Citizen got my attention. And then the interactivity of it got my real attention. And then I had a thought about Star Citizen. So let me tell you about that, and then I'll get to the questions. Anything that is labeled Star Citizen on YouTube is going to get 300,000 hits. And what I want to do is I want to find, and I'm sure some of you are out there right now, I want to find a very small group of adults, because when you watch some of these Star Citizen videos, you can tell that they're teenagers. People are bunching up and, they're just doing dumb things, and you can hear their voices and stuff. I would like to try, maybe I'll get bored with it, but I suspect not. I'd like to try to do a Star Citizen campaign, same hours, let's say, like the Stratosphere Lounge, except more regular. And, 2-3 hours a night and so on. I don't know if it's in place yet, but they're working on, if it's not in place, a persistent universe. And what that means is that what you do has consequences to everything else, and then those consequences continue on, and everybody is playing in a timeline that's moving. And my thought to that was how, because I've given all of this a great deal of thought on my own. I mean, a great, great deal of thought trying to figure out how to do this by myself. Now there's probably 450 of the best programmers and artists I've ever seen working on this simultaneously. But I remember thinking, let's say you have 10 people playing a game in real time, and guy number one shoots guy number two. Guy number two's ship is blown up, so he's out, so he comes back in. Meanwhile, guy number one is finished playing, so guy number one leaves his computer, but in real time, his ship or his base or whatever is still there. So what's to stop guy number two from coming up and blowing the daylights out of guy number one's equipment when guy number one's not at the computer? And you can't stop the game when the guy's out at the computer, because if you stop the game, it stops for everybody. So I was just mystified by this. It was the one thing that I just couldn't get. And again, I'm still only ankle deep in this, but Star Citizen found a way to do it that is, I think, a very, very good compromise. And again, I just barely saw this, folks. I'm not an expert by any means. I'm discovering it as we go. But what Star Citizen, I think, is going to do, or is doing, is basically saying, if you can get back to your bed, and the interiors of these ships, I can't believe I don't have any of the interiors to show you. The interiors of these ships are completely fleshed out, just like everything else. Just like Stratosphere Citizen. Oh boy, Maltz, that's fabulous. And they're tremendous. I mean, there are bunk beds, and you walk forward and you get into the pilot seat, and then you walk in the back, and there's the cargo bay, and then you go down the ramp and you get on a little ATV and drive around. And the planet is the real size. It's an open-ended real world. You have a moon, let's say, that's 2,000 kilometers across. You could get in an ATV, a motorized ATV, and if you started heading due west, after a significant period of time, you would approach your landing site from due east. You'd go all the way around this world. And when I started to see the degree of level of complexity in this, it just really put the hooks into me. And again, watching them try to simulate things, the simulations now are so good, and they've got so many people working on it, that they're now doing things like simulating fuel transfer. If I'm going to refuel another ship, how would we do that? They're simulating heat moving through a complex. In other words, if there's an engine room that's really hot, what happens to the temperature in the room next to that and the room next to that? They're playing with fog. They're playing with, the lighting is unbelievable. And it really fascinated me, because watching them work, there's a pet system. You can have a pet in this game, and your pet can interact with other pets. It's not like Second Life or any of this other nonsense. This is really, really, really well done. So here's my thought. My thought would be, if you could get I'll just spring for the Star Citizen thing, and we'll find a server, or we'll set up our own private server, play the game on the server, and then you can record all of these games, which means you can record all of the angles. And I think if I were to play with adults, especially professionals, pilots, engineers, actual soldiers, that kind of thing, it would look like a Star Citizen movie, and it could be edited in such a way where you're basically inventing the dialogue as you go, but you treat it absolutely realistically. And that's something that the kids never really do. They always, they're always showing the third-person view of them bouncing over the things, and they're flying around their spaceship and all these third-person views. And there's lots and lots and lots of them shooting at other spaceships and shooting at each other. You can shoot other people and you can shoot other spaceships in this game, but especially the space combat, if that's all you do, you're wasting your time. It's just an arcade game. if you were to take it really, really seriously, I mean, really, really seriously, you have 5, 6 people playing together at the same time. You get your first ship, which would be a smaller ship. People get on board it. They get to know the positions and so on. You go someplace far away, and you do some kind of a mission or something, and you treat it absolutely real time, which means that when you get off of your ship, you have to put down the ramp and walk all the way into the city and so on, having conversations with people. Maybe you have a sidearm on, maybe you got a couple guys who are security guys with you and that kind of thing. And then I started thinking, hey, you could actually do political movies like this. And and you could do them in a way that nobody would know they're political movies, because a really well-made Star Citizen movie is going to have a million hits, more. So how would that work? Well, you wouldn't have a written script, but if you had people who had the same opinion about economics, same opinion about engineering, same opinion about weapons, same opinion about all this stuff, if you moved tactically in such a way that your ground units are behaving like real people, and if the spaceship was flown realistically and doing all of this as if it were real, I think if you were interacting with other professionals, you would get something that sounded very different than the Star Citizen movies that I've already seen out there that are getting 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7 pictures. That pictures figures. So I am very, 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 very intrigued by this. And I'm going to go ahead and do it. I checked with the boss first, and she says that's okay, so long as I get my work done. And I'm talking about the Russian boss. I've got this Russian connection now, and Stratosphere Lounge has been hacked by the Russians. But yeah, it'd be like bowling night, right? You do it one or two nights a week for a couple hours at 6 o'clock or something. And I'm very interested. So if any of you are interested in, but you have to have had some experience, right? You can't just be new to video games and just want to do it. You're going to have had first-person shooter experience, maybe some flight sim experience. I don't care if you have the massive multiplayer universe. That's fine. You don't need that. But it'd just be something we'd walk through. And, of course, every time I make an appeal like this, I always regret it, because then I get 700 people wanting to play, and I can't do all 700, and I end up hurting 695 people's feelings. And I certainly don't want to do that either. But I think it'd be really fun to have a server set up and a campaign set up in the persistent universe that was as realistic as it could be made. I've seen guys playing DCS as a squadron, and they're pretty good. They've got the flight terminology is pretty much exactly right. The inter airplane communications. Fox 2, this missile's gone. Push. Maverick, you fire Maverick. And guys are calling out rifle. All of this stuff is really good, but the problem is that in between them giving these actual calls, they're just chatting like crazy. It just doesn't happen that way. I think it'd be really, really cool to see a movie made where you had 2 or 3 guys in F-15s and they spoke like actual fighter pilots, which means they don't speak at all, really. There's that old line about what is it? That the only thing the wingman is allowed to say is sir, you're on fire. Sir, your aircraft is on fire. Otherwise, shut up. That's the only thing I want to hear from you. Sir, your aircraft is on fire. And so it would make for an interesting movie on DCS, but DCS is not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in Star Citizen. And since the camera can be put anywhere on the recording, you're basically recording the motions of viewpoints. I think you could cut together little, hour-long movies, and I think people would see them. And I think if we were to do them in such a way that we had serious conversations about, do we really want to run out there? There's some shooting out there. Because it's none of this respawn, I'm dead, let's do it again. No. That should be a very, very big, big, big deal. And you should have to play as if you want to stay alive. I remember what I was saying about DCS. Now, I did see, and I don't have any of this either, there is a first-person shooter Army Squad game called Arma. And there's a couple of others. And I was looking at some of those, and I saw one game where there were probably 3 or 4 guys playing cooperatively, and they had to go into the graphics are just as good as this. And these guys had to go into a into a building in Afghanistan and pull out some bad guys. And you could tell instantly, you knew in 10 seconds that these guys almost certainly had been, real life operators. And if they weren't, they sure as hell could have been, because all of the moves were absolutely, the tactical moves were great. The covering fire was great. The interaction was minimal and very specific. And I thought it was really, 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 really cool. So I'm going to give it a little try. And we've always been talking. I've been talking for a long time about making the move to movies, and this is not going to take that place, but it's something I can do right away. And Star Citizen is appealing to the people that we need to appeal to. It's really appealing to, younger people. There's lots of older computer geeks there like me. I'd be willing to bet you that I'd be the oldest person on any one of the servers that I played on. But I've been there. I saw the whole thing, and I was just in front of that whole wave. I was playing Elite, the original version of Elite. I played Flight Simulator 1. I played Flight Simulator 10. All of it. And I think it'd be really fun to do. So if you have an interest in doing that, and again, I am so sorry, if it turns out that we have a huge rush of people, then what we'll do is we'll figure out a way for us all to be in the same server at the same time, although we won't be all on the same ship. But anybody who wants to join in can join in. With that said, we want this thing to be realistic. So if you've never played a first-person shooter or done any kind of, air-to-air combat or space combat where you have to lead a target, that kind of thing, if you have a real engineering degree, maybe we'll take it. But you get the idea. So info@billwhittle.com. Poor Carla's going to get bombarded with these things. And I am ready to go out there and just have some really good time. Tim was talking about Elite Dangerous is a I showed you the graphics from Elite Dangerous. And I just think the Star Citizen world is a lot better and a lot more thorough. So info@billwhittle.com, and just if you want to just head at Star Citizen, I'll get a look at those and we'll start putting something together. It's not going to happen by next week, but it might happen relatively soon because I'm just really on fire for it. And by the way, I need a little recreation. I need a couple of hours a week where I can just kind of relax and do it. They're putting out a new Star Citizen's working, I believe. Again, I'm so new to this. They're working on a new module called Star Marines, which, needless to say, will be perfectly integrated with the rest of the game, and that should up the combat system quite a lot. But instead of just dashing out in the hall and going, pew, 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 oh, I'm dead, respawn. No, we'd have to take it seriously. We'd really have to take it seriously. So, Star Citizen on the heading, info@billwhittle.com if you want to be part of the fun, and anybody who's goofing off will be ejected kindly. And anybody who wants to play it as if it were real life, that's the only thing that interests me, is playing it for real. Otherwise, it's just an arcade game. That's not interesting to me at all. A simulation of a world where they're now getting into the kind of details they're getting into, I find very, very interesting. Okay, so we got 52 questions here, and I'm already gone. How long have we gone? We've been talking for a while, almost an hour. Half an hour, we started late. So I have not read the questions yet, so let's see what we get. Matthew Lloyd appears to have the top ranked question. My vision is not what it used to be, but from way over here, it looks like Matthew Lloyd, and he says, you have an interest and a passion for telling a story through movies like Big Bat Problems, etc. Have you ever been interested in or considered telling stories through video games? It's a great idea. It's a great idea, Matt. I wish I'd thought of it. Oh my God, how about that? I genuinely had not read any of these before, not at all. And I don't think I probably need to answer that question, Matt, because I spent the last 20 minutes answering it. I didn't even know it had been asked yet. Yes. It's occurred to me, having looked at the DCS thing I showed you guys. I'm going to run that again. I'm going to make sure that, because this actually bears some more time. So come on now. Hang on now. Everybody nobody panic. Here we go. Okay. So let me show you what I mean. Okay. And I can see levels this time. So basically, what you're getting here is you're getting a computer graphics movie, and you're using, instead of having to go and render every one of these frames in a pullout, you're dealing now with with computers that are fast enough, the graphics that are fast enough, all of this stuff is fast enough to be in real time and look almost realistic. Now, some things look better than others and some angles look better than others, and that's where being a movie director comes in, because there are certain moments where I don't buy any of that. I'm looking at it right now. My rotation's not bad. I don't buy it, and now suddenly I do, because I think the ground is the least effective thing, and I don't buy the engines either. But I buy that. So, and I buy that completely. I mean, that's terrific. So what's basically happening is I'm going to just go ahead and play one more Star Citizen thing and kind of talk over it a little bit and make sure I not get any of the music up. Yeah. So what happens is this particular thing that we're watching right now is a fan-based movie showing off DCS, but the way they did it was the guy who made the movie just got in the F-15 and he put a camera out there and he flew past the camera a bunch of times and he edited all these things together, put it together in a movie, and off you go. And you'll see as we move on that there he is flying a Huey, and he's picked a camera angle. And he's waiting a certain length of time. And here's a reverse angle, and you're looking down at the airport. You can tell a story there, especially if on board that helicopter you've got guys who have been on helicopters or have a pretty good idea of what it's like to be on a helicopter. And you'd end up with a computer graphics movie that wouldn't fool anybody. You're not trying to fool anybody, but then I realized you don't have to. I mean, the people we want to reach with this are young people. They get this completely. That is fantastic. I mean, I don't know how that was not actual air-to-air footage and stuff. So basically what's happening is this guy's flying the jet in real time. He's recording it in real time, and then he's taking these recordings and making it into a movie. So one more for good luck here. Let's go to the Star Citizen thing again here. And I'm going to let this thing go because I think the people are the weakest part of this, and they're getting. Oops, the old one's still playing, isn't it? Yep. Stop. Hang on. Well, you get the idea. So the people don't look quite right because of what we've talked about before. It's called the uncanny valley, and the closer they get to looking like humans, the weirder it gets. But I'm telling you, they're getting very, very good on this too. For that is a real time, when you see the guy's face, that's a real time. So it's just beautifully done. That's a gorgeous shot. And look, we don't have to talk about making movies. They've made one. You're looking at it. This is a movie that is a commercial for that kind of ship, and the commercial is for the people that live in the Star Citizen universe, and it's an exploration ship. So what do we see? We see two different camera angles. We saw reversals. There's another camera angle. There's the landing. Now we're back at looking at the people or the little creatures, whatever they may be set up. Here's the thing working in real time again. This is what the game sees. Now, it's possible that this is better rendered than the game. I suspect it probably is a little bit better. But in any event, you get the idea. So I'm really, really excited about it. I really am. I think it's fantastic. So, so you can make movies, and you can make them for next to nothing. You just have to. What I'm talking about doing is almost be a documentary, really. But as long as the conversation was in the right place, talking about a little bit about economics and weaponry and ownership and all the rest of it, could be fun. If not, anyway, it's really worth a try. Okay, so moving on here. Chris Abate says, to combine a couple of our shared passions, what are your thoughts on why video games never seem to translate well to movies? Is it because the interactivity is part of what makes video games special and losing it just leaves you with a more hollowed out experience, or is it just because Hollywood always farms them out to hacks like Yui Bowl? My God, yeah, Yui. That's a good question. Video games almost never make the translation into the movie, and I would suspect, that is because the video game is interactive, and that's what makes it a video game. You're in the Starfighter, you get to fly the Starfighter. So the real answer is that the video games don't have the kind of plots. They don't have the kind of plots. They don't have the kind of story arcs. Sometimes they'll have a fundamental story arc, but they're certainly not written as, an adult drama or any kind of drama that'll stand up to scrutiny. They're just, the studios that make movies based on video games are betting that, having cool graphics and having, having cool graphics and a lot of action is going to be, going to get the gamers in there and they'll make more than they spent, and that's probably true in some cases. But I agree, Chris, they're terrible movies. As movies, they're just horrible. And I think it's because again, of the fact that since it's interactive, you don't need the storyline that you would if you were just sitting there watching it. But when you finally get to a movie theater, you do need that kind of storyline, and I just don't think that these things have it. That's why I'm so interested about this idea of getting a bunch of, when I say professionals, I mean, kind of professionals, and seeing what happens. It'd be like a conversation we'd have on a conference call, but you'd be able to record the picture and all the rest of it. Matthew Lloyd, okay, Matthew. Matthew's been basically putting this up here for a couple of months now, and I kept looking at it. And I kept thinking, it's like, for me, this is like somebody left a couple of crack cocaine rocks and a pipe and a lighter on a table right in front of me every day. And it's like, no, I don't do that. I can't do that. I don't have time to do that. And he just wore me down, damn him. So Matthew Lloyd says, Bill, you must come to the dark side and surrender to the sweet siren song of Star Citizen. I'm sure you could totally play in moderation. I actually could, believe it or not. I have learned how to not eat the entire bag of potato chips. I really have. So I could set, 2 hours, whatever it is, 10 hours, whatever. Just kidding, honey. That's just a little joke. Yeah, and if we're in a persistent universe, then we got to be back, back at the ship and in bed by the time we are about ready to finish. So yeah, I'm going to do it. Matt, let's see what else you got. What would it take to get you to fly this brand new spaceship home with you today? Oh my God, hang on. He's got a link to. I get the feeling. Okay. So he's got on Star Citizen, he's got a Stratosphere Lounge chat room, and it looks, the rendering, I'm sure it's not an accident, looks almost exactly like Ejectia, which is what we try to do along these lines, interactive universe. That was back in 2005 or 6, something like that. Yeah, I think I'm going to do it, Matt. But people have always asked about why don't we have a chat room on BillWhittle.com or chat, and it's really tough to get in there, given all the other things we have. But yeah, so Matt, maybe we should have a private conversation afterwards or something, because it's clear you've had a little more experience than I have in this, but I want to do it. So here's Fard Mohammed, says, Star Citizen, I've been playing Elite Dangerous myself, smiley face, and I started on Elite back in the day when it was just wires, green wires, cube, and you'd fly into this little square, and I felt like the king of the universe. I must have asked this before, and if I have, I apologize. As an early adopter of virtual reality, I see a lot of promise and potential in the format as a gaming peripheral, and for others, and for other applications, even more than when VR tried to get a foothold in the 1990s. I remember that it was terrible. Thanks to blisteringly faster computers, higher resolution screens, and improved head tracking methods. Have you tried head-mounted VR, the ones from the 1990s, either the ones from the 1990s or the current models? And what do you see as the potential killer app that could make the format more mainstream? I have not tried the virtual glasses. My understanding is that Oculus Rift is the best of these, and I haven't tried them. I've seen footage of other people trying them, and it's very disturbing because they're moving their heads and their eyes, but you're not. And so it's not matching what you do. I suspect that if you were wearing it and you were moving it and it was moving with your motions, it'd look a lot, I know it would, it'd look a lot more realistic. I'm looking forward to trying Oculus Rift out. I've never, my close-up vision, there she goes. See you later, Carla. My close-up vision is not very good, but I'm sure there's obviously a way to correct for that. I don't know if you wear glasses or not. In one of the pictures that we saw, the guy, actually I don't think I showed this one. It's an L-39 flight, and the guy's wearing headsets like mine, but he's got this weird sort of extension. It looks like an antenna, but it's not. And basically what it's doing is the computer, using something called Tracker IR, I think, or IR Tracker IR. In any event, now it's a plug into the back of your computer thing, and your computer is looking at where your head's going and where your eyes are going, and it's sending that information down to the sim, because in the sim, usually with a joystick, you could pan left or pan right with a joystick. Now, when you look left, the computer knows that you're looking left, watches your eyes move, and rotates the scene for you, so that as you look left, you see what you would see if you were looking left. As you look right, same thing. Works great on a flat screen, but with that Icarus Avenger thing I was talking about, you'd almost want to turn it off because you look around and there's everything. I can't tell you again how unbelievably effective it is to have a simulation, just visual. You're not moving the chair at all. And by the way, they also have chairs that will do unbelievable things. But just having it completely cover your peripheral vision, when you turn and bank like that, you really feel yourself going over. And I saw one chair that actually goes fully upside down, rotates in every single direction, and it's like 720 degrees of motion. People are going to be puking all over that thing. So I think the killer app is probably, Fard, I think it's probably something like this screen. The screen is still pretty expensive, but there's something about it. It's got a theatrical quality to it. It's kind of like you're going to the movies at night. You pull in your chair and you've got this wraparound screen that's probably just beyond your touch. Something like this. Projectors are coming down. And it's the exact opposite of what you would get with Oculus Rift, where you're kind of enclosed in this world. You're actually moving around and you're seeing things outside, and you can reach out. And some guys have gone to an unbelievable detail, but the instrument panels are right in front of you. They're being generated by the computer. Some guys and a couple of companies are making things, the actual switches. Somebody's doing like an entire series of A10 switches, and they're hooked up to the computer. So now if you want to, if you want to tune the radio, you look down here or over here, wherever it may be, and you turn the same exact knob that you have on an A10 and so on. There's a Thrustmaster makes an A10 throttle and stick, and it's modeled after the A10. It's probably got 25 switches on it, and it's exactly the same way. So that's pretty cool. And so I think the killer app is for me, is the sense that I'm not watching a screen anymore. The idea of that I'm able to look out into the real world and see things, to me, is better than wearing goggles that basically put me inside the computer universe. I don't really want to feel like I'm part of the computer universe. I want to feel like I'm just looking around at things that look pretty much real. So I really am very fond of this company. I think it's called SimPit something. It's a New Zealand company. And if you do a Google search for Icarus Avenger, or do a YouTube search for Icarus Avenger, you'll see it in action. Although I have to say, it seems like every single one of these videos was done by one guy. And look, if they're out of business by now, and they don't appear to be, but if they are, it's not a terribly tough thing to make. So there you go. Matthew Lloyd, back again. Bill, do you see video games performing the societal role of training young men in what it means to be a man that fathers have traditionally filled? If so, what do you think men are learning about masculinity from video games, good or bad? It's a profound question. They're learning violence, and to some degree they're learning cooperation. Some kids take it more seriously than others. Most of the gaming when I watch people play a first-person shooter, I played some Counter-Strike for a while, a couple of years ago, many years ago now, I guess, almost 10. And it wasn't too bad in Counter-Strike, but let me give you an example, an analogy, Matthew. When I first heard about paintball, I thought, awesome. So we went out to this paintball thing, and when I got started in paintball, again, it's probably 1988, somewhere there, 90, somewhere in there. When we went out to play paintball, there was like a, Big War 4, and there were something like 300 guys out there. And we were all dressed in camouflage. And we were all dressed in camouflage because we treated paintball as if it was real combat. We would move, we'd be undercover, we'd do ambushes and all the rest. And then I checked in on it again many years later, and everybody's wearing these neon colors now, because now it's not about that. Now it's about movement. It's about finessing the game rather than playing the game. And when you watch a series of first-person shooters like a Doom Room or something like that, you see people, most of them very young, who have absolutely mastered the game, but it doesn't look realistic in any way. It's they're learning. It's kind of Ender's Game, they're learning fast, and they're learning what the game limits are, which are not the same as what reality limits are. To give you a small example, it used to be possible, I guess it still is, in one of these, what was it called? Team Fortress games, where you'd have a red team and a blue team. Feels kind of realistic, but one of the things that you could do if you knew exactly what you were doing, and that meant you spent a lot of time on it, you could actually take a rocket launcher and fire it into the ground below you, and it would basically propel you some distance. You had to get it just right, but it would do it, which I don't think is actually possible in real life, actually. So those are the kind of things I'm talking about. So to that degree, they're not really learning anything useful there. The storylines have been routinely commented on that the storylines in video games are probably the most conservative media out there. And many years ago, I don't remember how long, at least 4, 5, 6 years ago, came a very important point, a societal point. And that was the point where they started spending more money on making a video game title than they did on making a movie, a big movie. I don't know how much money is in Star Citizen. I'd like to know. I'd love to have somebody tell me. It's all crowdfunded, all of it. But it's got to be. It's certainly tens of millions of dollars, and it's probably hundreds of millions of dollars. So, back to your question. I don't think they're learning a whole lot, which is kind of why I want to do what I mentioned earlier tonight. I kind of want. In fact, this is a big reason why I wanted to do it, and I couldn't put my finger on it until you asked me the question, Matt. I would like to show these boys, because they're most always boys, I'd like to show these boys how you would go through that world as men. I just think that'd be really interesting. Really interesting. You know, friendly but cautious, you know, careful. And none of this third person, none of you looking down on yourself, walking through the world, you know, they're just bored. Here we are, where we landed on this planet. Here's a rundown, you know, spaceport, and it's kind of shady looking. So the 5 of us better stay together, and you know, we'll have a pistol on our hips someplace, and you know, you're not walking around with a pistol in your face, but at the same time you're looking around, paying attention, and having just a regular conversation. 150 million, Matt. Yeah, that's a lot of money. So that would, I think, give younger players a sense of adulthood. Now, the question is, would they find it interesting? And I suspect they probably would, because I've seen the interactive games that they do with each other, and they're terrible. People are just bunching up in the same spot, and, you know, they're saying dumb things, and, you know, you can hear some of these kids are like 10 years old. Look, if not, it doesn't matter. If it doesn't work, I'm going to have a good time, and I need a little R&R. I think that's it. But I don't think they certainly don't perform a role that a father would perform for them. And at this point, I have to say something. I was talking to my fiance about this, and I thought she'd be real happy about it, you know, because she worries a little bit about me flying out in the real world. I worry about it too. That's why I'm a very safe pilot. But I was showing her this curved screen thing and all the rest of it, and the games and stuff, and she said, "Billy, this is not for you. You do things in the real world." And I thought, wow, what a cool thing to say. What a cool thing to say about me. So I'm not going to give up doing things in the real world. And this is kind of the point of this thing I've been hammering home all night on this show, is because I learned how to do a number of things in the real world. Hang on a second, the phone is a-ringing. Because I learned how to do a lot of things in the real world, like fly a real airplane, for example. Going into the game, my flight skills would be good, but most importantly, my language would be correct. And if you happen to be somebody who's interested in this and you spend some time in the infantry, you would know the correct way to clear a room. You'd know the kind of terminology. You'd know all of this. You just get it. So I think this is really actually kind of fascinating. The more I think about it, the better I like it. What I think is actually happening, Matt, is just the exact opposite of what you think. Most people would think that the flight simulators are used to prepare you for the real world. But what I'm talking about is bringing the real world into the simulation. Because watching the simulations, the interactions of the simulations, I see some people trying to get it right, but nobody gets it exactly right, with the exception of that one group I saw in Arma. Those guys were absolutely professionals. Absolutely professionals. They were terrific. So it would be interesting to, because this is the world they live in, right? I mean, there's no question about that. This is not a big breakthrough observation on my part to say that young people are living in computer games. And I've spent a fair amount of time talking about how awful that is, and I'm not taking anything back about it. But But with that said, since they're there, why not bring some adults into the situation? This is a profoundly good idea. The more I think about it, the better I like it. Look, it may fall flat on its face. I'm certainly willing to admit that they may find it completely boring, and I get that. But the thing that would make it interesting would be if you did the cinematic, if you directed it. And guess what? If you directed it and the camera was where it's supposed to be, and I think it would look like little movies. We're going to find out, by God. We're going to find out. So, yeah, what if we did bring some actual father, male man into this computer-generated world? Would it stick or not? Maybe. And if not, we're going to have a lot of fun. Moving on. Chris Johnson says, Mr. Whittle, it's Bill, please, Chris. Thank you for saying so, but I like Bill. Ever played a Legend of Zelda game? If not, you should. I don't make much time for video games, and I would highly recommend them. Very respectfully, Chris Johnson. I haven't, Chris. I remember... and this isn't Zelda. I've never played any Zelda, and I'm not too much interested in the fantasy stuff, although certainly people are. I think that game's been through 11 iterations now. But I do remember a game called Myst, and I want to say that Myst was the first game that I saw that was an open world. In other words, you could just start walking, and you keep walking. It never ends. It's not like you're confined within a level. Most first-person shooters, until very recently anyway, had a level. You would have a room and a tunnel and another room and a ledge and all this other stuff, and you have maybe outdoors and stuff, but there was a level. There was an arena that you had to stay in. And I would be not the slightest bit interested in that. The thing about the Star Citizen thing that really put the hook in me is what we were talking about earlier with that pupil-to-pupil zoom, where you basically start in orbit and you come down, you re-enter the atmosphere, and it's generating the planet in real time. As you get closer and closer, it's increasing the resolution in real time. Next thing you know, you're flying through these canyons. Then they put a pre-built landing pad in there, but it looks exactly the way it would look if you had that kind of technology. And I always wanted to have that kind of technology. I think it'd be really cool. And they're keeping a tight lid on this. They're very smart. When they started doing things like, what was it? Oh, man, I don't remember. It's a shame. I played a lot of a variation of a game. It was a mod of a game. It was pre-Counter-Strike. And it was a first-person shooter, and they basically had a bunch of people who would come up with skins. Skins are what the character looks like. And so you'd see the guys, you'd be playing a whole army of guys dressed like the guys in Reservoir Dogs. Every single character on your team would be wearing a black suit, a white shirt, and a black tie. And the skins got more and more unusual and more kind of funny, and it just kind of went downhill. It just got to be, kind of just got silly. Rocky Horror Picture Show was talking about that earlier today for some reason, or last night. Rocky Horror was fun to go to when people were acting it out, but if you went a year or two after, they figured out how much fun it would be to throw rice and everything. What you find is everybody's just simply saying the lines from the movie, and that's not interesting at all. So it's possible to overdo these things, and Star Citizen seems to be keeping a pretty tight lid on all of this. I played a fair amount of Black Hawk Down, too. That was another combat simulator. Spent a lot of time on that. I like that very much. Okay, so moving along here. Here's our friend Dave Olson. If you could put 3 pristine arcade games in front of BillWhittle.com, which would they be? Mine would be Spy Hunter, Stunt Driving, and 720 Skate or Die. If you think they would be too distracting for your minions, which games would you put in your super groovy Jupiter 2 replica house? I'm old school like that. We're not talking about, the kind of things we're talking about now. If I had to go back and pick 3 console games that you had to put a quarter in, it would be Missile Command, Joust, and what was that tank game? The Vector tank, with the green lines, the very, very beginning of actual 3D stuff. Battlezone, maybe? Yeah, those would be the 3. My God, back again to Matthew Lloyd. I'm not selecting these. They're being ranked by likes. At least I assume they are, because I can't resolve any of this. So let's see. Matthew Lloyd is back again. Bill, would you consider doing once a month for however often game night where Strata Loungers could join you in a multiplayer game, MMO like Star Citizen, or a game like Battlefield, which has smaller teams, for example, for an hour or two? Well, having not read the questions before I launched into my long oration, I would like to do that very much, Matt. And I'm sure we can find a couple of other people who would be willing to do that. Again, info@billwhittle.com. Put the header as Star Citizen, and we'll start picking up crews and teams. Now, I have an enormous amount of work to do, and in fact, there's an almost overwhelmingly almighty reason to not get into this at all, because I'm so overworked and I have so little free time. But I do seem to think that after just running Battlezone, thank you, after running, I do think it's time to take Abraham Lincoln's advice when he said, if I had 6 hours to chop down trees, I'd spend 4 hours sharpening my axe. So I need a little recreation. I need to kind of just get lost in stuff and kind of clear the head out. I've just been working on editing political videos that just keep coming in. You just have to keep running to get them out the door. So yes, I think this is probably going to happen, man. Matthew, here's the next question. Let's say, partly for the sake of conversation, mind you, that you did pick up Star Citizen. My God, I suspect he's a Star Citizen's rep. If you could choose to fly any ship, which ship would be your first choice? I'm assuming you've looked at the ships. I have looked at the ships, Matthew. I think, now of course, I've looked at them. I just don't remember them anymore. Hang on a second. That's worth going to. What I'd want to do is I'd want to come in with something a little better than the default Aurora or Mustang that they give to people. These are the things that you get when you come in. They're very, very small. They'd be too small to have a group of people on. Hang on a second. And I had this question actually thought out a little bit. I think this is insider baseball, guys. I'm sorry. I think I'd probably start out with hang on a second. I'm looking. They're amazing. I wasn't originally in love with the way that just the general design of these. I'm liking them better as I go on. I would start with come on. There's the Auroras. Those are the starter things. I'm sorry, folks. Sometimes this just has to happen this way. There's what I'm looking for. I would start with a freelancer, I think, Matt, and then as we worked our way up, we'd probably go to a Constellation. It's a bigger ship with more crew, and you could do more, but it'd be fun to start small because I need to get to know that universe and how things work. I may even start with a 2 or 3 person ship. Undoubtedly, if I get this thing going, I'll spend a little bit of time, solo, getting the feel for the weapons and all the rest of it. So yeah, I thought about that quite a lot. You don't want to start too big, even if you had the money to do it. Growing and gaining equipment in a game is a real important thing. Okay, let's see here. We'll do maybe one more, 2 more. Mark Dudridge says, haven't tried Star Citizen, but I have numerous captains on PC and Xbox versions of the Star Trek Online. I've also had limited play on Elite Dangerous on Xbox, but not got the feel for it yet. I also play numerous other games to some degree or another. Oops. My favorites being TF2. I know what that means. It slipped out of my mind. Rainbow Six Siege. I remember first time I ever played a realistic first-person shooter was Rainbow Six. That was fantastic experience. It was incredible. I was playing with my friend Fritz, and that's the first time I've ever looked down the hall and seen another player, and working together. It was incredible. Great. Really cool. Let's see. He says Rainbow Six, The Division, and Elder Scrolls. Anyway, my question is, what's the most unexpected employment you have gotten from a computer game? For me, though, the dozens of STO Star Trek, captains, Star Trek Online captains, it's always been the ability to just cruise through the quadrants, picking and choosing which encounters to engage, kind of how I wish this could be, I suppose. The best... What is the most unexpected enjoyment you have... it's enjoyment. I thought it said employment. I found that when I got in the actual F-18 Hornet simulator down in Miramar, that my guns work was very good because I probably spent 5,000 hours leading targets. I've led biplanes in Rise of Flight and Red Baron. I've led, P-51s and Spitfires and Cliffs of Dover and all the rest of it. And I've led jets and all the Falcons and all the rest of it. And it's fun to be able to have a good eye for where you need to lead a target like that. And that kind of pays off. I have no question at all that the starting in flight sims not only helped my flying skills, because by the time I started flying in gliders, I must have had 2,000 hours, at least that. I'll bet it was 3 times that, of just playing computer games and computer flight sims. And I have no doubt whatsoever that helped me up there. I think I mentioned this once or twice before. I would do things like I forget what version it was. It was probably on the Amiga or something like that. And I would Flight Sim 3 or 4. First time they had like green for land or something and different colored lights for the airport. So I would take the closest jet I could find, which was probably like a Gulfstream private jet, and I just dial its setting in and I'd set it up at 80,000 feet over O'Hare, and I'd try to land it without using any throttle at all. I just treat it like as a space shuttle, just an absolute dead stick landing in from 80,000 feet, and I could just do that consistently. And that's not a super great glider, the Gulfstream. So that kind of thing really helped, and a lot of the spatial relationships. Now, I have to stress that all of the simulators that I spent my time on are nothing like the ones today, because I am here to tell you, if I were to sit in front of the L-39 simulator until I had it down, I would be able to walk into an L-39, start it, and fly it. I already know I can fly it, but every airplane has its own idiosyncrasies, and you'd be an absolute idiot, and I'm probably illegal as well, to simply get into one of those without a flight instructor with you. With that said, if you spend 100 hours or 50 hours in the L-39 simulator with that degree of fidelity to the actual flight model, I'm quite sure that you could log some of this time. I have no doubt whatsoever. I'd have to find out what the FAA requirements are, but I have no doubt that some of this would be loggable. Just as one example, because all the jets are this well done, but just as one example, as I said, the A-10 in DCS, the A-10C, has every single thing in the actual A-10 modeled. Every switch, every dial, all of the displays. It is virtually photorealistic. I suppose I could tell the difference if you had them side by side, but it's good enough to fool me. And so that is, in fact, a simulator, because really, when you're talking about things that you can actually learn prior to going out in the wild blue yonder, just things like cockpit awareness are really important. Where is the radio? Where is the transponder? It's muscle memory. It's like if I need to move the transponder, switch the transponder on my Long Easy, that's a left-hand job. If I want to do it on the Sky Arrow, it's a right-hand job, because they're in different places. So that kind of thing I think could be very good. And I think we'll stop with this one because I got to finish this firewall, which I had to reshoot. The global warming firewall I reshot from the ground up. I had a couple of holes in that argument that I didn't want to leave open, so I went back and redid it. It's shot. I'm just pulling the pictures. I should have it in a day or two. And then presumably regularly again. So we'll close up with Karsten Mueller here. Well, my first game of this kind was Elite way back then, and loved it. I did too, Karsten. I absolutely did. Now it's Elite Dangerous Horizon is out, and I kind of like it, except for the fact that they put stupid politics factions in it. When it comes to Star Citizen, I do not have that game, and most likely won't buy it either, because as is, there's plenty of stuff that is not done, delayed, and what have you. Nope, not buying it. I don't blame you, Karsten. This could be an incredibly bad mistake for me. And I'm not joking about it. But I wouldn't even be having this discussion with you guys if I did not have confidence in my ability to keep this thing limited to, a couple hours a week, set times, and maybe a little goofing off here and there when I'm not, working or spending time with the lovely Natasha in our new little house, which we're renting, which we're very happy with. And we have a brand new little kitten too, and that's all fun, and I like that much better than playing computer games. And sitting at home watching the sun go down and having dinner out on the porch is the best, certainly the best experience I've ever had in my life. So I don't want to do anything that would take away from that, but she has some work to do sometimes too, and I really do need I need to have some fun. I mean, I just put it as plainly as I can. I really need to have some fun, and I think this would be a lot of fun, and I suppose we're going to find out. So, I think, let me see. I think I'll probably do it. I'm going to go back to the page. I wasn't watching the comments for a while there. So, yeah, I think that'll do it. And for those of people who've been asking about the movies, is this going to replace the movies? It's not. The movies are. I'm working. It's very hard to make the transition because there's so much work I have to do at BillWhittle.com. I just to stay, with just to tread water, just keep my nose above the water. I have to, put out, 5 right angles a week, probably 5 or 6 of these after hours a week, and a bunch of other stuff too. So it adds up. But I think that I need the relaxation more than I need the 2 hours. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a try. And besides, we might get something really cool out of it. Who knows? Maybe this will be the thing that you stumble on, and you never know what you never know. Anyway, I know this show was a very limited appeal to most people out there, and that's okay. We were fairly warned on the Facebook page. But it is I'll just close with just 2 summations. As I said, I think if I'd been born a year earlier, certainly 2 or 3 years earlier, I would have missed the whole thing. I just would have missed the computer thing. It would have been computers. I don't understand computers. And if I'd been born later, I wouldn't have been there at the inception. I wouldn't have been there and watched it go from scratch. The first computer I ever saw printed out on the green and white screens. There wasn't even a monitor on it. So I have a lifelong interest in this, and as I said, the first software I ever wrote was to simulate the creation of a solar system, so I have a very high level of interest in simulating things. And I think I can't put my finger on it, but watching people recreate reality and how each one of these tasks are broken down into such small little subtasks. If you just watch a guy playing with the lighting, for example, in one of the rooms, it just blow your mind. It's interesting to see an army of very talented people at work, and their entire goal is to see how realistic they can make things in our minds, in the computer. That is interesting to me for a number of reasons in the real world. So that's number 1. And number 2, we've always talked about, reaching young people. I'm doing those TPUSA videos for kids, and they may have some effect on them because they'll be prisoners in school. They can't escape. But I've felt for a long time that, action, adventure, science fiction movies were the way to reach young people. And it's slowly entering my thick skull here that this might, in fact, be a way to get a series of movies done, not only for free, but, free minus the cost of getting the thing in. It's just interesting, and I think it's going to get more interesting. One thing I've noticed all my life is with Eject. We did this Ejectia thing. We had this virtual city that we just didn't have the technology or the money for in 2006, 7, something like that. But one thing I've found is that, like DCS, is if you disperse an idea, people will bring stuff to the idea that's much better than you could have ever come up with on your own. And for instance, if you read Lord of the Rings, if you read the trilogy, I've got a pretty good imagination. I had a good mental picture of Lord of the Rings, but I couldn't come anything close to what 200 of the best artists in the world could do, putting everything in. A good movie works that way too. A writer will write a character, and you put everything you got into this character, or maybe a little less for lower ranking characters in terms of screen time. And if you give it to a bad actor, he's going to come in with less than you gave him. But if you give it to a good actor, and that's most of them, they're going to come in knowing more about a person that you created than you do. And they will say, I don't think this is right for him. And you realize, yeah, I think that actor's right. And the greatest thrill is when an actor, or especially an actor, brings in something because they don't have to worry about the whole movie. They don't have to worry about 30 characters. They don't have to worry about the plot. They have to worry about one character. And many times a good actor will bring in stuff that, as a writer and director, you just sit back and go, oh, that is just fantastic. That's fabulous. It's fun to watch things get better than they would be if you had 100% control over them. This is a lesson I think our Democratic friends could probably learn. That lesson being that you cannot plan an economy better with 10 people in a room in Washington than you can with 300 million people working in the real world in real time. It just can't be done. It's orders and orders and orders of magnitude too complex to be understood by 5-year plans and planning boards and all the rest. You've got to get back and let it go. Let it do its thing, watch it evolve. There's a lot about this age that I don't like. I'm not pleased watching the erosion of so many important values, but the technology has always been cool. And, I've often felt that technology may be saving us, if anything's going to. The fact that we're having this conversation right now is an indication that we've got a tool that, previous civilizations didn't have. So I'm going to give it a little try. And I'll give it enough try to do it. And if it doesn't take off politically as any influential use, that's fine. We'll still have some fun. But just for the last time, for those of you that may come late, if you're serious, and we mean serious, I'm not joking around about serious. You want to take this just as a social experiment and as a fun experiment in your spare time. If you want to take it seriously, like it's actually real, I'm very interested in that. And a lot less so than people treating it like a game. So anyway, I'll be thinking about it some more. What time is it? It's 7:30. I got to make a phone call, and I might end up putting a little more work into the firewall shot list. But thanks again for watching. Sorry about the audio and sorry about the late start. They're asking me to do a 21st century, they're asking me to make a 21st century internet show out of stone knives and bearskins. And it's harder than it looks. All right. So I think that'll do it. Again, thanks to everybody. Special thanks, as always, to our members at BillWhittle.com that keep this little, wonderland of geekdom liquid and lit and electrified and all the rest of it. And we will be looking for just some more of the regular content, getting serious about that. But we'll play around a little bit and see what happens. So